guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Rustbelt Outdoors. On this episode, I sit down with my brother Ben. Ben's an avid fly fisherman, and we go in depth on why he enjoys that and how he gets so successful. Hopefully, you guys enjoy it. Also, we were recording this at my parents' house, and I sat down in what is my father's massage chair, and it talked to me a couple of times during the episode. I don't know if the mics picked it up or not, so if you hear somebody saying, "I am here," it's that dang chair. I apologize for this.
Hi, my name is Ben Lockhart, Donald's brother.
All right. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself, where you grew up, how you got involved in the outdoors, all that kind of stuff?
Um, I lived in Oil City, PA, 34 years old now. Got introduced to hunting and fishing through our dad. And yeah, our dad.
Yeah. But we pretty much grew up outside,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
during the summer
Yeah,
after.
summer we were always at the creek fishing. I mean, it's 15 steps from our house, so I mean, yeah.
It's kind of weird we're recording this in our family
House?
home. Yeah.
It's weird. I think this room at one point, well, it switched around. One of it was your, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we grew up. Mom started daycare. We were constantly in the creek all day, every day, or running the state park or across the road on the hill.
Yep. As far as our bikes, so as far as we wanted to pedal our bikes, is as far as we fished.
Yeah, pretty much. Walk the stream up, walk it back, all that good stuff.
Yep.
And at some point, it would have been high school when you got into fly fishing.
I was 15
Yeah.
when started fly fishing. Um, I was down here on Oil Creek, and I was an older gentleman down there, and it's the first time I even seen fly fishing in person, and it just looked really cool. So I kind of looked into it, did some research on it, and then bought a fly rod probably a month after that, and just kind of started tinkering around with it, and it just is exploded from there. I don't think I've touched a regular fishing pole since I started fly fishing.
Not even for like panfish or
No,
walleye or anything.
no,
No, just
no.
straight fly
Just try
fishing.
fly fishing.
Yeah.
I the only trout I ever fish I catch is trout.
Yeah.
I don't. I tried bass fishing a couple of last year out of the kayak, and it was fun, but it's not fly fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So I've tried it and I think I'm good enough that I can tangle my line on every single cast, and that's about it. I've never even caught a fish on a fly rod. So what's the trick? How do you get good at this stuff?
honestly, the best way to get good at it is a lot of time, a lot of patience. And when you go out there and you don't catch a fish, don't get frustrated. Just stick with it. Kind of like watch what the bugs are doing. Go out in the middle of the creek or on the side of the creek, flip rocks, see the size of the bugs, the color of the bugs, the shapes of the bugs. Um, is mainly your biggest thing, and then just kind of watch and see what the fish are doing. Stand on the bank if see if they're rising, are they jumping, are they doing anything on like above the surface of the water? If they're not, then if you know the water as good as we know Oil Creek, you just kind of know where they're hanging out, and you just start going through your box with nymphs, and you just make a couple casts. If nothing's working, switch it, and just it's a big old puzzle. And every day is a new puzzle.
What is a nymph?
A nymph is the what is a fly that is under the water. It would be like the stage of a bug's life before it gets out of the water and grows wings. So it's the stage that it's because bugs will lay their eggs as they're coming to the surface. Nymphs or emergers. That's a whole other fly. They lay their eggs, and then they'll go under the rocks, and then when normally within a week, either before or after, depending on the weather, but it's usually about a week span, you'll get about the same hatches, at least on Oil Creek. So once it comes out of the water, like gets under the rocks, has its legs, and it starts going to the surface. And then once it gets to the surface, it'll get its wings and fly off, and then they'll mate. And this is kind of crazy. Bugs only live for like 24 hours. Everybody thinks like they have this life, and no, like they literally pop out of the rock, go to the surface, fly around for a few hours, do what they got to do, and then that's it. And then another fly, like they call them spinners. When they die, they'll spin like a helicopter, and they'll land on top of the water. And there's also a fly. It's called a spinner, and it's the dead version of flies. And they'll just because they're dead doesn't mean fish will eat them too. It's
So you're not doing like when I first started, it was all dry fly. Everything that I did was all
yeah,
dry fly. I keep the fly as dry as possible on top of the water, and you're
right.
looking for that fish. You're not doing any of that anymore.
Not I do it very rarely. A fish only feeds on top of the water 10% of the time. So my whole thing is, why would I do something that works 10% of the time when I could do something that works 90% of the time? So I do a lot of Euro nymphing, which Euro nymphing is with a longer rod. I use an 11-foot rod, a 2 weight. And instead of having an additional indicator, bobber style, you have a 2 color piece of line, and it's called a cider. Mine's or yellow on the bottom and red at the top. And then I have a leader that's about 20 foot long, and down where my different 2 shades of line is called my cider, I tie on my tippet. And the tippet I run a foot and a half deeper than what the water is. So say I'm fishing in a foot of water, I'll run a foot and a half of tippet. I personally like to run as as light as I can. So I usually run a lot of 6 and 7X. I always get a lot of backlash saying, "Oh, that's pretty light tippet. You break off a lot." No, because like I said, with a nymphing rod, you got to use a longer rod. It helps keep the line off the water. That's another thing you want to do when you're nymphing. You want to keep the line off the water. And you want to keep your line tight. And the key the benefits of the nymphing is when you're running an indicator on the old style, just because your indicator's in front of your rod doesn't mean your fly is directly under your indicator. Just because the water is flowing a certain way at the top, underneath the surface, it could be flowing faster, it could be flowing lighter or slower. It's each water column, some, in some cases, is flowing a different speed. So just because your bobber's on top of the water flowing nice and smooth, your fly might be clear behind it. It might be in front of your bobber, or it could be below it. You don't know. So if your bobber or your indicators, say your fly is in front of your indicator and a fish hits it, you have no idea that you even had a fish. So like Euro nymphing, you keep everything's a straight line from your flies to your tippet to your cider to your reel. Everything is, even though it's different pieces of line, it's all connected and it's straight from the tip of your rod. You hold your rod about a 45-degree angle above the water, and you just let it, and you throw it upstream and let it drift down. Your tip of your rod, you follow it with your line, and everything is in a straight line. So sometimes you don't even feel the fish hit. Sometimes it's just a slight hesitation of that line. That's because of your cider. You keep an eye on your cider, and there might be just a slight little hesitation, like stop, and either you got bottom, which is a good thing, but you want to be on the bottom, or you have a fish. So you just set the hook. If it's not a fish, okay, then drop her back down, let it drift out. If it's a fish, then you got a fish.
No, when you say set the hook, are you doing like the full largemouth bass crank that
No, no,
puppy?
we're not. No, you don't have to do this a lot. No, you just literally you just lift your rod and you got them hooked. I personally my flies are all barbless. One, because a lot of the places I fish are delayed harvest. In one of the rules, even though nobody enforces these rules, one of the rules is you can't use a barbed hook. In most of the tournaments that I fished, like the Oak Creek Classic, they run the same rules as the professionals do, and you're not allowed to use barbed hooks on them either. Which I don't. I like barbless hooks because I'm not. it hurts the fish less. And at the end of the day, all I want to do is catch that fish, take a picture with it if it's big enough, and put him back in the water, and he's good to go for another day. Most of the time when I'm netting my fish, the hook falls out of their mouth into the net when I so I'm not harming them. I don't even most of the time I don't even touch the fish. I literally net them. Most of the time the hook falls right out, and I literally just drop my net in the water and he swims away. I don't even touch the fish most of the time. That's why I like barbless hooks. But if you get one that fights and he likes to jump out of the water and you don't keep your line tight, you're gonna lose them.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I would rather lose a couple more fish and not hurt them than use barb hooks and catch more fish and hurt them. I like to keep them. I like to keep the fish as unharmed as I can.
Yeah, it's all catch and release.
100%.
Yeah, and you're trying to save the resource, make sure it's still there for another day, somebody
Absolutely.
else.
I mean, maybe tomorrow some younger kid can go down there and catch the same fish that I did.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a pretty cool concept. I know, especially like the fly fishing, that thing's huge. There's a lot of people that don't even want you touching the fish anymore. They just want you to try and unhook it without touching it and just let it go. I've
Yeah,
seen that coming around quite
yeah.
a bit, but that's more of a Western thing with like the cutthroats and the.
And I mean, if you do get one that you want to take a picture with and hold it, I know I've caught some good ones. Just wet your hands. That way, your hands are wet because trout have a slime on them that helps them keeps them healthy from like the bacteria and stuff in the water. So if you have dry hands and you're grabbing them, you can wipe that slime, we'll call it, off
Mhm.
of them, and that couldn't hurt them. So if you're gonna handle them, just wet your hands, grab them, take your picture, and put them back. Don't throw them in there. Set them in the water. If they if I put a trout in the water, I'll usually put him between my legs in some calmer water, and if he sits there upright and he can hold himself there, he's fine. Now, when the water gets to be about in the mid to upper 60s, like 68-ish, you could still fish them, but that's when you can really put a lot of stress on a fish. So when the water temp gets up to like the like middle mid 60s, I'm done. So honestly, my fishing seasons for around here will start in February, and then June, maybe a little bit before June, I'm done. So I only get a couple months out of the year,
Mhm.
but I use the rest of the time to tie flies, restock boxes, um, mainly just retie up flies
Yeah.
because I like to do that in the wintertime when I'm not going for steelhead fly fishing.
Right.
Um, that way, when the time comes right now and I get time to fish, I'm not having to worry about, oh, I don't have this fly, I don't have that fly. I'm all stocked up, ready to go.
Right. So you tie all of your own flies?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
What kind of materials are you using?
Pheasant tails. A lot. I use all different kinds of dubbing. I've used rabbit dubbing, squirrel, squirrel and rabbit mixed. Um,
What is dubbing?
dubbing would be the fur off of an animal. Like they'll take the fur off of a rabbit,
Mhm.
squirrel. Squirrel's really a really good one.
So it's just like to add more texture to the fly.
Texture and color and make it look a little bit more realistic. Really, a red like a tail of a red squirrel,
Mhm.
the red with it. If you can get some of that material, especially around here with like the sulfur hatches and stuff, it works really well. Gray squirrels work pretty good. Black squirrels work. I mean, all the squirrels work good. I'm just saying, but if you can get like a red squirrel and you could get some fur off of it, they work really nice just with the sulfur hatches and stuff.
So if I get you some red New Zealand red fur from a rabbit, would you be interested in some of that stuff? It's just as red as that red squirrel is. I mean, they pop.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, possibly, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I have to check that out. That'd be pretty cool. Get you some fur you can catch a big fish on. Um, so when you're going out and for this like the Euro nymphing specifically, what kind of conditions are you looking for in the water?
Um, oh,
Like you want fast moving, high water.
The better you get, like the professionals, they like fast riffles. I'm more of a kind of a medium, slower riffle, but deep with a deep or hole kind of guy. Um, when the fish are feeding on the bottom is when I'm the best. When they're up in the column feeding like they were the other night when I was fishing, I was at the Neshannock, which is a stream down south from us,
Hmm.
down around Valant, Newcastle area, and all the fish were seem to be feeding up in the column on dries, and I struggle because I can't really get I can, but for me to get my drift right where the flies are up in the column, I'm still working on that.
I got
But
you.
when they're down on the bottom and their bugs are coming out, but they're not hitting the dries, is when I can key in on it. But riffles, you don't want to fish a slow deep hole when you're nymphing because you got to have flow. You got to have your line moving. You got to have your flies, your nymphs moving.
Hmm.
Most of the time, you're using nymphs with bead heads on them for the weight to get you down. And so you're gonna want something with some current.
Okay. So you can't. So with a nymph, you can't just like say take a pawn, throw out, and retrieve. Like, that's not something that you'd be able to do.
You could successful wise, you're probably, I mean, if you want to catch panfish, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I would say trout wise, no.
No.
If you
Okay.
want to do that, you would throw a streamer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between a streamer and a
A
nymph?
streamer would be a fly that imitates a bait fish,
Okay.
or 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 a crayfish.
Okay.
It could do either
Yeah,
that or a crayfish.
that makes sense.
Um, Honestly, I really didn't know until a few years ago how actually much trout feed on crayfish. You don't like you think it's just especially in Oil Creek, like you think all smallmouth and stuff,
Hmm.
but there's actually, especially when you get like a big brown or a big rainbow, and they with a decent sized crawfish, like they love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's I just kind of learned that. I mean, I figured they would. I mean, they're
Right, but
there.
it's nothing. It's something you don't really
Yeah,
think about.
but it's just another little put a couple crayfish
Yeah.
flies in there just to have it, just another little pool to have.
Right. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense because growing up, it was always spinners. Like we were always throwing out spinners and spoons in the creek when
Yeah,
we were trout fishing. It
yeah.
kind of looks like a crayfish
Hmm.
could, anyways, going through the water. So that makes a little bit of
Yeah.
sense.
And when I was first started fly fishing, all I used was streamers because really you can't get them wrong. You just throw them out there and then you either retrieve them fast or you just retrieve them slow. You really can't mess them up.
All right.
And trout love them. I mean, they're a minnow, so they're going to eat them.
So now, when you were talking about them being up in the column, is that something that you would try on that type of a day, like where the trout are feeding in the column? Would a streamer be helpful there?
It could possibly, but I'm going to say no because if they're up in the column feeding, they're feeding on bugs. So you really got to find what bug they're
Okay.
they're feeding on. Really, I'm not saying you can't catch them on them because
Hmm.
you can, they're trout. But if you wanted to, if they're up in the column feeding and you wanted to be successful, you really got to find a nymph pattern or a dry that they're keying on.
Okay.
And when it comes to the dries and nymphs, the three biggest things and these are the three most important things. Size is most important, shape is second, and color is third. So when I'm looking through my box and I see a fly go by me and it lands on my arm. Okay, me knowing the crick and the bugs, okay, it's a black stonefly. I'd say it's probably a size 14. But if I was new to it and I was like and I'm on the crick and I say, okay, a black bug just flew and landed on me. Okay, so I'm getting I see it. I get in my box. The first thing I'm going to look for is something that size. Okay, but say, okay, I don't have anything black. Okay, so, but I have something brown in that size. I would try that.
Okay.
But if I say I have a black fly, but it's a size 12, so it's a little bit bigger, but at least it's black and it's the same shape. It's just not the same size. But Size is more important, and then second would be shape, and then third would be color. So you can get away with a little bit of not having the same color.
Mm-hmm.
You can get away with a little bit of not being the same shape, but you really can't get away with the same size. You really got to have the same size
Okay.
because when a trout's come, like you got to think when a trout's in the bottom of the creek and he's seeing bugs just whizzing by his nose and he's eating them, and then all of a sudden he sees one that's even bigger, it's like, oh no, that's not. We're not. That shouldn't be there. You know.
Right.
Once again, I'm not saying you can't catch them. I'm just saying if you want to go out there and catch numbers, you gotta you gotta have that
Right.
first.
It's all about the details.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all about the details.
Yeah. You had mentioned steelhead fishing. I know I went up with you that not this last year, the year before. We went up in February. What's the difference that you're doing when you're up fishing the tributaries of Lake Erie for steelhead versus, pit hole for a trout?
Honestly, nothing.
No?
No. Uh, eh, Instead of running size 6 or 7 tippet, I'll run like size 5. I still like to go as light as I possibly can. Now for steelhead, I'm still using an 11-foot rod, but it's a 4 weight. Now I know people are going to say, "Oh, you can't use a 4 weight for a steelhead." Well, I've got pictures to prove otherwise. I've been told many times that I can't use it. I can prove you wrong. I got the rod from Cabela's. They still make it. No, they don't. They only make a 10-footer now. They lied to you.
No.
They only make a 10-foot 4 weight. I wish they still made the 11 because I would buy an extra one because I wanted a backup. But I will still run 5X. If the water's a little dirty, I'll go to 4X. I'll still nymph for them. The only downside to that is you're going to lose a little bit of distance, but it's not that big a deal. Because if you're using a indicator, you can throw it out there a little bit further and get your nice drifts. With nymphing, you're gonna lose a little bit of distance, but it's not that big a deal. And then obviously the flies up there, I'm throwing eggs, sucker spawn. I'll even throw beads. I'll throw a bead on under my Euro nymphing rig. Beads, honestly, I've last couple of years I've smoked them on beads. I know the day you went with me, we smoked them on beads. But no, I'm not doing anything different but from down here to up there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I thought it would be like a completely different world.
No,
But I mean, I guess it's relatively the same fish,
no.
same
Yeah, yeah.
conditions.
I mean, they're yeah cousins.
Yeah.
I honestly, when I'm fishing, either steelhead or on the creek, I try to keep it as simple as I possibly can. There's no reason to complicate it. You're just going to give yourself a headache and make your day not as fun or successful as it should be. Just make it. It's just nice and easy.
Um, so I remember growing up, Dad always would tell us, you got to watch your shadow. Don't ever put your shadow on the water. Is
Right.
that something you're still paying attention to?
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When I'm walking up to a bend, I was actually the other night, I was walking up to a bend that had a hole and it had trees in front of me and trees behind me, and there was a shadow. So on there was sun. If I would have walked along the creek, like most people would have, I would have put a shadow on the water. So I made a loop out around. Absolutely. I still do that every single day. And also what I will do is I won't, when I'm getting up to a spot that I'm going to fish, I'll slow my walk down. I couldn't tell you for sure if they can feel it. I don't know. But for me, I've just kind of snuck up there a little bit and it's worked for me. So
Hmm.
I'm just going to keep doing it. I know people that have ran into the water pretty much and started fishing and caught fish. I like to be a little bit more sneaky. It it's just something I do. But absolutely, yeah.
It's interesting. We had Mark Hutchinson on, and he talked about muskie fishing. He talked about the exact same thing, where he'll cut out around to get to the upper side of the hole to fish it the way that it should be. Or the same thing he said. It'll sometimes it'll take him an hour to go 100 feet because he's just moving that slow to get that perfect first cast on the right hole.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's pretty interesting. It translates over to the trout too. You'd think that those predators they wouldn't care nearly as much about something like that, but it's interesting that that seems to make a difference.
Yeah. And I also like to be a little bit more stealthy because if I go to a spot and I don't catch a fish, and you're always playing it in your mind. Okay, was it the fly? Was it this? Was it that? And you can be like, well, it wasn't. I shouldn't have scared them because I took the extra little bit and kind of snuck up in there. I didn't just bust in up in there, and maybe I scared them.
Right.
I know with a lot of like the trout streams that I fish, they're pretty small, and once they've been in there for a month or so, and they've seen 1,000 flies, 1,000 bugs, 1,000 spinners, and have been caught a couple times and released, they get clammy. They
Yeah.
don't want to hit. They know what's up. So I just like to be able to actually, and bright clothes. I will not wear bright clothes. If you see me fishing, um, I have a special rain. Like one of my jackets is one of my Sims jackets. It's dark green, so if it's raining, I will not wear bright clothes at all.
Yeah, Mark made the exact same comment. He told a story about first time he went muskie fishing. He had a bright orange hoodie on, and the guys that he went with were pissed
Oh, I can
that he
imagine.
had this
Yeah.
bright orange hoodie on. So that's interesting. The second time, and I've never even thought about that before. Now, granted, the only thing I'm really ever fishing for is like smallmouth and panfish. And dude, I'm pretty sure you could stand over top. Actually, I know you can because I've done it. You can stand over top of them and catch it. It's like they don't care at all.
No, I mean if you just give them a meal
Yeah,
and you put it if they're yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, no, you will not. If I'm fishing, you will not catch me. And my waders are like a dull gray. You will not. My boots aren't these bright boots that you got. They're dull. My pack, everything you like I see, it's dull. It's not camo. Don't get me wrong.
right,
I'm not ghillie suiting in here, but I'm not making myself present.
right.
You
Yeah,
know.
you're gonna blend in with like a tree behind
Yeah.
you, or if you've got
It,
some cover behind you, it'll at least be similar to what they're looking at. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Um, so like obviously a couple weeks ago, like right around or about the week before opening day, everything was straight hammered. We had a week and a half straight of rain. What does that normally do to the fisheries?
it'll spread the fish out a lot. It'll push them in areas that normally don't get fish. So it'll spread the fish out, but that's about it. I mean, they'll go to the bottom, they'll get behind rocks, they'll hug the bottom. They know what they're doing. It just there's nothing as an angler, you can go give her a shot. I'll give you credit, but I won't. I just sat at home and if you type in Oil Creek, if you fish Oil Creek, if you type in Oil Creek water level and you click on the second link that comes up, it'll show you the page and it'll give you the information like the discharge and how high Oil Creek is, and it'll give you all the numbers. And I didn't even know it existed. There's actually a little green building across from our house.
Yep.
And I remember growing up as a kid, I was like, I don't know what this little green building is. I've always wondered it. And here about 7 years ago, there was an older guy. I ran into him up in the park, and he was talking about it. And I was like, yes, sir. I was like, I've always, I live right across from it. I was like, I've always wondered. And he goes, or what that green building is. And he's like, oh yeah, that, they have cameras and stuff in there and that they tell you
Hmm.
the water level, the discharge, the cubic feet and everything. He's like, oh, it's paid for, you're paying for it from your
Yeah.
tax money. You might as well use it. So now me living an hour away, if I'm coming up here, I'll always
Check it.
check it.
Yeah, you're not gonna make the
Yeah,
drive if it's not worth
I
it.
always check. And I will say, I have fished Oil Creek when it was at 800, and a lot of people say, oh, it's still a little high. I actually like it at 800.
Yeah, 800 seems to be pretty good for you.
800, yeah. I mean, and lower is fine too. But 800, it's still a little high, but you got good flow. And as long as you use, for me, as long as you use bugs with a little bit of bigger bead heads, like a 3.3 or
Hmm.
4.4, you'll get down deep enough and you'll catch
So
fish.
that 800 cubic feet a minute or something, or what's that 800 number relative to?
The height of the water, I think it's the discharge.
Okay, so it'd be cubic feet per
Cubic feet,
minute or
yeah.
whatever hour or whatever it
Yeah.
is. Okay.
And if it's blown out, Oil Creek usually takes about three, a good 3 or 4. even 5 good days of no rain
Hmm.
to get it back down, just because it's so big.
Right, when it's got all the tributaries and everything that are
Well,
dumping it. Yeah.
realistically, there's only three small streams that run into Old Creek the whole way up. That's one of the reasons why Old Creek, the water gets so hot so fast,
Okay.
because we don't have a lot of feeder streams in Old Creek. I mean, it starts all the way up in Lake. I don't remember what the lake's called. I never can remember what lake it starts up there. But there's really only
Hmm.
three major little streams that run into it. Thompson Run, Pine Creek, and then Cherry Run here. And then
Doesn't Pithole dump into Oil Creek?
no,
No. Okay. I thought I don't know why I thought
no,
it did.
no,
It dumps
no,
into Clarion then.
no. It comes to the Allegheny
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh,
down at Oleopolis,
that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense now that I think about it. Yeah. Yeah, we drove by there. Was that last weekend? We drove through
or down in
Pithole,
that area, or down in that area.
right around Oleopolis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we drove through there 2 weeks ago, I guess it would have been, and there had to have been 10 guys on the lower bridge and only one person on the upper bridge. I don't know why nobody was on the upper bridge, Stone Arch.
Well, there's a gentleman that lives there, and I'm thinking, because I was there a couple weeks ago, and I still am waiting for information. I got a couple guys that are trying to give me this information, but it looks to me like he posted his property.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, you can't go downstream
Right.
unless you go to the other side of the bridge. And honestly, it's a mountain, and you have to
You're right.
scale it. And so I think a lot of people are just like, we're not going to fish it
Yeah.
because it just
Yeah.
accessing it it's rough. It's not
Yeah, because that's not a navigable body of water, so you can't even walk it. It wouldn't even be considered
with him
legal.
posting his property.
Yeah.
You can't no
No, there's.
downstream. You would have to pretty much, like I said, you have to cross the bridge
Hmm.
and scale the
Right.
hillside
On the side that
i-
wasn't his.
in the side that wasn't his. And I've done it, and it's miserable, and I personally won't do it.
Yeah, that's fair. I know
Um,
we've caught some nice fish out
but
of there
you can
before.
fish the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of hard to do with a fly rod, wouldn't it? Especially with barbless hooks and everything. I know it's not that high off the water, but
The lower section of the bridge is rough, but if you go a little bit above it, there's like a little. You can go right across the bridge where there's a path
okay.
on the upper side. You could fish that
Oh, I see what you're
because
saying.
there's
You're down at
current.
the. You're not talking about fishing off of the bridge. You're
No, no,
fishing.
you can't
Yeah.
fish off the bridge.
Yeah.
No, it's only
Okay.
a 1 lane bridge, and
Yeah.
unfortunately the people fly down through there.
Hmm.
It's very sketchy. I would
Yeah.
not fish off the bridge.
No. No, that makes sense.
No, I would. It's a good way to get hurt.
Yeah. So, what type of gear would you recommend if somebody like listens to this, they decide I want to go out and try this? What would you where would you recommend they spend money and where they save money? So like go high end rod, low end waders, vice versa. Like how would you think about that?
I mean, honestly, throughout the whole fly fishing, you can go as cheap as expensive as you want. If you want to go get high end waders, I will say you're going to get you'll get a little more lifetime out of them. I know there for a while I was going with like a cheap $100 pair of waders
Hmm.
from like Cabela's, and I was getting a year out of them. But I was also fishing from February till almost June every single day. Not all day, but
Right.
after
A
work I
couple
was
hours here,
going.
a couple hours
And then
there.
weekends I was every single like Saturday, Sunday I was
Hmm.
fishing. So I in that year I got them out. But I will say, and I found this out the hard way, and I will let people know this: you were, maybe people already know this, you were not supposed to wear blue jeans under your waders.
Yeah.
That's all I ever wore under my waders was blue jeans because I was getting off of work, driving to Oil Creek on the way home because it's
Hmm.
literally on the way home,
Right.
wearing what I wore to work, which was blue jeans, and wearing them.
Yeah.
So definitely do not wear blue jeans under your waders. Um, but if you want to go with the high end pair of waders, I have two pairs of Sims. I've had them for going on 6 years now, and I love them both. I have had cheap wading boots. They work fine. I bought Sim wading boots, but I love them. They are comfortable. They are awesome. They
Hmm.
stick to the bottom. You don't slip, and it feels like you're walking on clouds, and
Yeah.
it is awesome. Um, and then, like I said, rods. Once again, if you want to go with a cheap starting rod, there's nothing wrong with that. I've started out with $100 Cabela's rod, and I still have it today. It's a 9 foot 5 weight. It's in my truck right now. That's my dry fly rod. And I've had that thing since I was 15 years old,
Yeah.
and I love it. But I started nymphing, and I just had way more success nymphing. So I got a higher end nymphing rod, which my rod is a syndicate. And honestly, it's a high end rod, but it's actually like mid range price. They're right around like $370. But you on a nymphing rod, you can go all the way to $1,000 if you really want to, or you can go down to $100.
Hmm.
So honestly, but I will say the quality of rod for the price of it, you can throw it up against the Sages. You can throw them against the Portlands. You can throw them against whatever competitive rod out there. I'll put it up against it any day of the week. Um, I will say if you want to spend a little extra money, it'd be flies.
Yeah.
Just so you not buy a bunch of them, but just buy a variety of
I get what you're saying. One of this, one of that, spread it out.
inside. Like say a stonefly, get your 12s, get your 14s, get your 16s, get your 18s. Get a variety of the sizes. Don't just get one of each. That way when you get to the creek and you see the bugs and it's okay, that's a size 18. There's next day it might be a size 12. A week from there might be a size 10. It like I said, every day you go out there is a puzzle and you just got to put the pieces together. Some days are faster than others. Some days you don't put the pieces together and you go home thinking, I don't know what I could have done differently, but whatever I did was not even close. And but there's days that you go out there and it doesn't matter what you throw, you can't go wrong. Like I was up in the park one time and I literally caught a fish and threw my line. I got it was kind of wrapped around, so I unwrapped the fish, took my fly out, just tossed it in the water. Was had the fish in the net, was reviving it, and all of a sudden literally my fly is 2 feet from me in the water, and my rod's between my legs, and it starts twitching, and a fish actually came up and grabbed it. There's
No
just
kidding.
days where you can't do anything wrong, and then there's days you can't do anything right. But that's just the fun of it.
Right.
It's just the challenge. Like I told the older guy when I first seen fly fishing, I was like, I could come down here with a box of mealworms and maggots and catch almost every fish in here.
Easily.
But
We've done it a million times.
I said, but this is such a challenge and it's so much fun to do. I can't go back to the old way. I
Yeah.
got to do this.
I remember there'd be days where we'd start at the dam, but about a mile on the road, probably a mile and a half on the stream. And by the time we got to the house, we'd easily have 30 fish doing exactly that. Mealworms, maggots, just floating them through the holes.
Spinning minis.
Yeah, not a
Yep.
problem at all.
Yep.
And then like I said, when I tried fly fishing, it was an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, but you also didn't give it time.
You're right. I didn't, and I didn't know what I was doing. I never looked into anything. I never had any type of help either. But I don't know. I would try it again, give it a shot. It's definitely looks like it can be fun. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a very addicting hobby. And I will say if you go at first, if you go low end stuff, I promise you, if you stick with it and you do it long enough, you will end up with high end stuff.
Now listen, it's no different than my archery stuff.
I
That's definitely.
I wish I had some of the money that I've spent on fly fishing stuff
I
because it's a lot.
I could say the exact same thing about hunting gear. Uh,
But that goes from my whole like my fly tying, all my fly tying stuff,
yeah,
clear down to the flies and everything in between. But it's yeah, it's a lot of fun. And when I see younger guys or kids down there trying it and they're not doing very successful, I always try to go over and give them some advice, give them a couple of flies that I know have worked or are working, and just try to keep them in there. Because, like I said, I know when you first start out, it can get very frustrating, and it's stupid, and I don't want to do it anymore, and then they give up. And
yeah, I know that feeling. I remember one time we were out. We were in Cooperstown fishing that little pond right there in Cooperstown. I had a dry fly, I don't know what I was doing wrong, but on my backswing, I kept snapping my fly off while I'm trying to cast, and it sounded like a dang 22 going
oh
off behind my
yeah,
head.
yeah,
And I that would after that I was like, you know what? I obviously don't know what I'm doing with this. Just went back to a regular
Right.
spinning reel, and yeah, I can catch fish on a spinning reel all day long, no problem. But you give me that fly rod, and I'm lost. I remember what dad told us, what, 10-1, right? That's the only thing I can remember about it is
10-2.
10-2. Is that what it
Yeah.
is? Yeah. Okay. See there, there you go.
But also, you're not trying to cast. You it's just a nice easy back and forth because you're letting the tip of your rod do the work. It's
Okay.
kind of like golfing. You swing a golf club and you let the golf club do the work.
Okay.
You let the tip of your fly rod do the work. Nice front, back.
Okay.
And then it's also not in the wrist. You like lock your wrist. It's all in your elbow.
Okay.
So what want
So there's no like whipping
10,
motion to it whatsoever. It's just real nice, steady, and let that. So
right.
the whip comes from the tip of the
Yeah.
rod.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and honestly when you're throwing it, you actually hesitate a little, like when you are back the whole way, you gotta hesitate a little bit. So your line, it loads your line. It's like you're
Okay.
loading the line on the tip of your rod. So when you're back the whole way, you hesitate for a second. And when you go forward, you hesitate for a second. And the tip of your rod loads up, and that's what shoots your line out. And
Okay.
also, but if you're the windy
Hmm.
and the wind's blowing in your face, good luck.
Good luck. Because.
I mean, a little breeze isn't bad, but if you got like a decent wind, yeah, it's just gonna mess you up all day.
Hmm.
Unless you got the wind to your back. If you get the wind to your back, then you'll be casting the whole way across the creek with ease because
Yeah.
you just let the wind just do what you to let the wind do the work.
So how does that work on Old Creek? Because I know that wind is usually following the stream. Like for whatever reason, the thermals seem to just tunnel the wind right down the valley.
When it's windy and I'm nymphing, it's rough because, like I said, you want to keep your line tight, and the wind will blow your like try to blow like a U into your
Hmm.
line. So it is rough. You got to keep your line, you got to keep your rod tip kind of low. If the wind gets too bad, normally I'll just call it a day. As bad
Yeah.
as as much as you don't want to, or I'll go to the bank and I'll sit down and maybe see if the wind's going to stop or if the wind's going to change. But if it wind gets too bad, you're just going to fight yourself and cause, like you said, just tangling up, and you're going to be miserable. Most of the time, I just call it a day.
Right.
If season's in and I can go fish other places, I'll go fish a smaller stream that's protected by the wind. If the season's not in, because like I said, I fish the delayed harvests a lot, which
Right.
is open year round, but it's all catch and release, which is fine with me. Um, then I just go home, just call it a day. No sense of breaking stuff and getting frustrated when
Um,
there's better days that are gonna happen.
yeah, those flies and tippet and stuff get expensive really fast.
They
Yeah.
can, absolutely. And honestly, I don't know why, but tippet definitely seems to be going up in price over the years, and it's kind of crazy.
I think it's because it's getting more popular. I think it's a lot like archery equipment keeps going up in price because of the popularity of it keeps going up, and as more people want it.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for it. I like that people are moving to these more challenging things, getting outside more, doing more stuff with nature. I think it's going to help preserve it. As counterintuitive as that sounds, I think the more people that get involved in these activities, the better it's going to be for the resource because they're going to understand it and respect it more. There's nobody that respects the fish more than the person that fishes for it, or the deer more than the person that hunts for it. So, I definitely think that that's going to be a net positive for the resources that we have out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when I'm down. Like I remember the one time I was down in the park, and it was just me, and it was one of them days that I couldn't do anything wrong. I was just catching fish left and right, and there was a dad, and I'm gonna assume a dad, but he had two younger. It was a boy and a girl, and they were trying fly fishing, and they were struggling, and I caught a couple really nice fish, and a couple like I caught like three nice ones in like 5 casts. And they came over and they helped me take a picture of them. And I was talking to the dad a little bit, and I was like, "Well, are they? How new are they?" And he's like, "Oh, they're pretty new. They're kind of getting a little frustrated." I'm like, "Yeah, I can see that." So I got in my box and I gave him each one of the flies that I was using, and took the one out into the. We walked out into the oil creek a little bit, and I was kind of showing him the cast, and literally second cast he threw out there, he caught one.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so I netted it for him, and we went back to the bank, and then his sister was like, "Oh, it's my turn." I'm like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, it's your turn." So she goes out there, and I showed her the cast. I think it took her like 7 casts, but she caught one
That's great.
instantly, and like you could just see the joy. And but my day was pretty much going to be done after that. So I'd seen him at least catch each one fish. I don't know how
Right.
long they stayed, but the dad was like, "Oh, he's like, oh, I appreciate it. What can I do?" And I'm like, "No, you don't
Yeah.
have to."
No, that's what
I
it's
was
all
like,
about.
"Yeah," I was like, "Trust me, I would rather see them to catch 1,000 fish
Right.
than my two." Like I was like, "I caught enough. I'm good."
Yeah.
I was like, those 2 fish they caught are way make me smile way more than the ones that I caught.
Absolutely.
Just so
That
I
was
kind of wish I would have stayed a little longer, but I was there all day and I was running out of time. I had other stuff I had to do, but I know at least they each caught one. So hopefully maybe that hooked them for hooked it like it hooked me. I hope so.
I can imagine. It doesn't take much. I know. I mean, heck, even with just us, that I remember that the first time you catch a bluegill, and that was enough for me that like this is something here. There's something I want to do again, and
Yeah, but I will say the last I didn't go up last year, but the 2 years prior to that, I was up in Erie quite a bit,
yeah.
and I will say the steelhead fishing up there kind of ruined my trout fishing down here, just because there's nothing that I'm gonna hook down here that's gonna give me the fight and thrill
Right.
that I get with the steelhead, especially a big steelhead.
Hmm.
And like I still enjoy catching them down here, but
Well, I remember when we would go up when we were young, and we were just using spinning reels with a noodle rod at that point in time, and I know exactly what you mean because I remember that first fish you catch. They're probably, I don't know, 5, 6 pound trout that you're pulling in, if not bigger,
oh yeah, yeah,
fairly commonly. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
even
I'd say probably yeah, 5 pounds is probably yeah,
yeah,
average size. Yeah,
25 inches in that range.
yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing on a little creek that's going to come even close to that.
I don't know what weight wise my biggest one was, but my biggest steelhead that I've got was is 30.
30 inches.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good size trout.
but and I couldn't even get my hands or like girth wise.
Oh yeah.
I wanted I would probably say maybe 7 pounds.
Hmm.
I'm gonna go on the lighter end just so I don't sound crazy.
Right.
I'm gonna go at least 7, but that was it was a male. It was the red and it was a really pretty fish.
Yeah.
That was the biggest one I caught. And the water was so clear, and I was actually using a streamer, but it was a streamer, but it was more of a jig. So I was kind of jigging it,
Hmm.
even though I was Euro nymphing. I was still kind of jigging it, and I watched him eat it. So I got to see it.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I really didn't think I was going to land them, to be honest with you, because the water was so clear. I was actually using 6X tippet.
Oh, so you're light, light.
Well, yeah, you got to,
Yeah.
and then you got to use fluorocarbon.
Hmm.
You
I
got
do
to.
remember that. I
You have
remember
to.
in that Florida, that stuff gets expensive fountains too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, we're not gonna go there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and that's like I said, I get a lot of hash from people like, "Oh, you're going so light, you're gonna break a lot of fish off." And but them longer rods, especially I use like I said, I use an 11-foot rod down here, I use an 11-foot rod up there. Those longer rods help you take the shock
Oh yeah.
off the line, and you
Yeah.
just got to play them a little bit. That's all you do. You can't horse them.
Now, do you feel like using that lighter weight, you're putting more stress on the fish because you're making it fight longer and harder?
You probably are, and that's why when I do catch them and I put them in the net, and I get my picture. I'll always take it in a calmer water and I'll hold it there for a little bit and revive it because I don't even the steelhead I don't keep. I
Right.
throw them back there. And I can tell you right now, I've been doing this for 34 years and I've never fought a fish and it died in a creek.
Right.
Now we've gone a 2 mile
Oh yeah.
and caught them out of 60 foot of water
They're dead by the time they
and
hit the
they're
surface.
dead when yeah.
Yeah.
But I've never caught a trout or a steelhead in a creek in nice cool water. Because like I said, once that water gets hot, I'm done. I don't even try it. I don't like I that website that I told you about. I think it has the water. It has the water, like the
Temperature.
temperature of the water. And once it gets like 67, 68, it's people say you're good in that, but I'm done. because that just I'm not even gonna try it. I don't want to keep them. I don't want to kill them. So I'm done.
Yeah.
I'll wait till fall.
Have you gone out and done any targets for natives, like the native brook?
Mm, not really. No,
No.
I just I don't really have the time to go like look for places for natives and knock on people's door and try to get permission because everybody has their land posted
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, and it's just there's it's more hassle anymore. It's not like it used to be where you could just drive down a road, see a creek, and just start fishing it.
Right.
Now you got to like get on HuntX,
On it.
OnX,
Yeah.
and look for the landowner. Try to get a hold of them, see if you can get permission, and it's just not worth it anymore.
So, what would you say if I told you I have a pin on a property that we have permission on that had native brooks?
It has native rooks.
100%. I saw the fish with my own eyes.
How many? A lot.
There was at least four in that hole that I saw.
Oh, let's go. I mean, yeah. If somebody, I'm not sounding lazy, but if somebody has like permission, I'll take them and like you can catch the fish. I'll help you catch them.
Yeah.
But I'm not putting the time in to go find them. It's
Right.
just not with my
Yes.
work schedule. It's just not.
Yeah, the piece that I hit that buck on this year, the one that I lost, when we were tracking it when Dave came out with the dog, we crossed the stream and I watched them. There was four of them in the one hole, and Mary Ellen's dad actually used to fish that creek when he was little, and they pulled him out of there all the time.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
yeah, yep. So all right, we got any closing thoughts? Anything you want to wrap up with?
Just that if there's anyone out there that wants to get into fly fishing, just I'm telling you, do it. You'll once you do it and you get kind of and no, I'm not saying get good at it. You'll get good at it over time. Like I said, it just takes time. But once you catch that first fish on a fly rod, whether it be a dry or a streamer or a nymph, you'll be hooked the rest of your life.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Hopefully you guys were able to learn some stuff from this. I was able to. This was an amazing conversation, my brother. We've never actually sat down and had this type of a conversation. And I honestly can say this is the first time that I've truly connected with him since we were children. And it was absolutely amazing. So until next time, remember, take somebody outside.